Hi, I'm Josh. On this episode of Make It Photography, we'll talk about my recent trip to Cuba, where I took my cameras and my tablet and my phone and did a full mobile photography workflow. Let's talk about how I use Lightroom Mobile on this episode of Make It. For many people, the first time you think about mobile photography, you think about using a phone as a capture device because, hey, it's mobile and it's photography. But one of the things that's really awesome about doing your phone or your tablet with you anywhere that you are means that I don't have to wait until I get home to get some of the value and benefit and fun of photography. So I recently came back from Cuba where I took my cameras with me. I've got a couple different cameras and I brought my iPad, I brought my iPhone, and of course this works equally well with an Android tablet. And I brought those with me because I wanted to be able to work on my photos while I was down there. This helped me so that I didn't have to worry about waiting until I came home and then spending all this time going through every single one of my photos and basically just pushing back the time that I went through and culled my photos. The first thing we want to talk about is I actually used this Lightning to SD card adapter that allowed me to take my SD cards and import them directly into my devices. I have a tendency to use my phone as the primary mode of ingestion because I've got my phone with me at all times. I can keep this little adapter in my pocket and I can just, whenever I have some photos that I want to work on, I can just pop them in there. The cool thing about working inside of Lightroom Mobile is that it's going to synchronize all of your photos from any one of your devices to the next. And so that way, when I'm back, I've got all my photos already on my iPad or I've already got them on my phone because my phone's with me pretty much at all times. But one of the things I can do is now that I've got my photos all together, and here I've got about 2,000 photos from Cuba shot on a variety of different devices. I shot them on my Nikon digital SLR, my Leica mirrorless camera, my iPhone. I had an Android phone that I was taking pictures with. So a lot of different devices, and they're all now together in one place. But the first step that I want to do is I want to go through and I want to cull or make selects. Because one of the biggest differences between a good photographer and a bad photographer is that a good photographer will only show you their best photos. Another way of putting it is you're only as good as your worst photo. So what I want to do is I want to edit out all of those bad photos. And inside of the Lightroom mobile workflow, there's a couple ways of doing it. I'm working on the iPad right now, and I'm going to just tap on a photo. Actually, you know what? I'm going to just turn on something that, for those of you that sometimes do make videos out there, there's an option in here called Show Touches. And once I turn that on, I can actually show you where I'm touching on the screen. But now that I've got this application opened up, I can tap on an image and it'll show me full screen. So I've got a couple of different options over here. I've got edit selections, I've got this info tab, I've got comments, and then I also have this rate and review mechanism. So this is actually the mode that I'm going to be in, and as I swipe through the images, what I'm looking for are images that are actually going to add value to the story that I want to tell. And in this case, the story is Cuba. And that means that I want to go through and be able to put together a series of photos that are both interesting but also tells this story arc. Because ultimately what I want to do is I want to get people to go from the beginning of this series of photos all the way to the end. And the best way of doing that is to make it feel like it's a cohesive story. Now, maybe one of these photos is something that's interesting. So one of the cool things is that inside of Lightroom Mobile, I've got this gesture, we call it speed rating. What I can do is if I swipe up or down, I can go between this pick or reject option. So the pick basically means that I can now filter later on to show only the photos that I've gone in and marked as a pick. I also, if I swipe on the left-hand side, I can add a star rating. Now, the way that I normally work with my culling workflow is I actually go in first and I just make a quick pass of selects. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the photos that are actually something that I might want to work on later on. And then I go in and I do additional rounds. So I do a multi-pass select workflow. And so the first way I go is I go quickly and I say like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let's pick that one. And then I keep on going actually, and I can go back and I can see, oh, what's the difference between these two photos? Now, hot tip, when you swipe back and forth, it's actually sometimes difficult to tell the difference between one and the other. That's why we got this film strip on the bottom. So if you tap on the film strip, you can tap between those two images and you can see that on this shot I was up higher and on the next shot I was down lower. The shot where I'm down lower actually is a much more interesting shot. So I'm going to go back to this up higher one and I'm going to deselect it. and then I'm going to go on to the next photo. So I'm going to keep on swiping through. And the goal, like I mentioned before, is to go in here and keep on looking for and identifying images that I think are pretty neat. Through the magic of television, I've already culled out a few of these photos. So let's go in there and take a look at that. I'm going to go back. I'm going to tap on this little funnel icon up top here, and I'm going to pick Show Me Only the Picked Photos. So the cool thing now is that I've gone through and you can see a reduced set of photos that I've actually selected because I felt like they may have some potential. And sometimes that potential could be, does it work inside of a story? Are these good interstitial photos? Sometimes they're things that might become better once I edit them, and sometimes they're things that, you know what, it actually doesn't work that well. So if I go in here and I start looking at this reduced range of photos, I now have a much smaller set, and I can say, for example, this photo isn't as successful, so I can unflag it, which will automatically kick it out of this filtered view that I'm looking at right now. And then I can go through and I can see, what do these photos look like? As I go through this process, I might go in and start using star ratings. I know lots of different people that use different approaches to using the flags and the stars, and there's no real right or wrong way of doing it. I have a tendency to use a combination of both of them. Like I mentioned, I start off with the flag rating, and then after I've got the flag rating done, I'll go in there and I'll use the stars to help differentiate between the flagged photos and then flagged photos that have some star ratings to them. Whatever works best for you. I tend to focus on if a photo kind of has some potential, but I need to edit it. I usually start off with like 3 stars. If a photo looks really good and I'm sure it's going to be great, I'll do 4 stars. And once I've taken a photo and after editing it and it's really, really awesome, I'll make it 5 stars. So if I go through here and then start adding some ratings to these images, like I like this image a lot, so I'll give that one a 4 star because I'm pretty sure that once it's edited, it's going to work well. You can keep on swiping through and go through this process of selecting more and more photos. And then what I can do is I can back out of this, go back into my filter view, and I can even tell it, now show me only the photos that I've added 3 or 4 stars on. And again, through the magic of television, I had already selected a bunch of photos. And so I can even take a look at some of the stuff that I captured and be able to like take a look and feel like if I've created a good experience, a good story or not. What we can do now is we can use the built-in sharing mechanisms available inside of Lightroom. So I can go out of here. What I like to do a lot of times is create a special collection that I'm just going to share and only share the images in that collection. So if I go to this 3-dot menu and I say copy to, I can go in and I can copy this photo, this photo, this photo, this photo, this photo, and maybe that one as well. And now I can copy it to a new location, and I'm going to call this one, let's just call it Cuba, because it's easy. And now I've gone in and I've got this new Cuba collection right here, and I can share this page right here. Click right there, share. And I can make sure if I want to share it with metadata and all that other information, but that's great. So now that I've got these photos ready to share, I can tap on this menu over here, tap Share Collection. It's going to tell me it's going to share it. I click that button. It's going to create a space on the internet. It's going to have a special URL. And once it's done, we give it a little second here. So now that it's shared, I can take this button here, click View on the Web, and it's going to open up a lightroom.adobe.com page. And now I can see what these images look like on the internet. If I go back into Lightroom, I can click Share Link, and it'll come up with a message here, and I can type in, you've got the URL ready to go, and you can send that link to anybody else. People can then actually add comments on it. They can even download those photos if you want them to, and that's all through Lightroom. And so it's all done, it's all together, and it's all really, really easy to use. So this is something that I found to be really, really helpful if I want to get my photos out to certain people, if they want to download them, they want to see them. I can even go in later on and you can check out some of the other amazing things that are available on Lightroom Web to be able to add in information, tell even more rich stories. So that's a really fun workflow, all powered by Lightroom, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and hope that you go out there and try out using these mobile workflows. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.